I simply reject the premise. When people look and they look at things that they consider, this is the way it is, I think about this is the way that it could be. You don't need 10 books. One book was enough. You're reading the other 9 because you're scared to fail and you think that you need to have a perfect plan. You're never going to be perfect doing anything for the first time. I didn't feel ready, went out to start my company, but I was. I was able to build more than $1 million company in less than 9 months. There's opportunities everywhere around you. It's just whether you have the awareness to those opportunities, and you need to do a lot of work in order to grow and start to see them. I'm an entrepreneur. I can't deal having someone else call the shots because I see the world so differently that no one sees it the same as me until I create it.
Today, we have the opportunity to dive into the world of modern marketing with an innovator and a thought leader who has been reshaping the way businesses approach the go-to-market strategies. I'm so delighted to talk with Chris Walker, who is known for his forward-thinking strategies and the data-driven approach. Chris is not just setting the trend, he is blazing the trail for everyone to follow. Let's learn together about Chris, his company, his mindset, as he is the person worth learning from. Thank you and enjoy the episode. I lined up really great guests for this season, and across all conversations, we always go back to, obviously the importance of building trust. Customer buys only from those they trust with their guts, right? Who they can build a personal relationship with. So my plan for this conversation with you is to build trust and help listeners to do the same. Because this is the first time I'm meeting with you, so help me understand who I'm talking with. What I know so far about you is you have an engineering background, then you move to product, then marketing. Now you've spent many years in demand. You've spent almost 8 years working in B2B. You ran your own firm for 4 years, and you have excellent reviews with clients. And you are considered to be one of the brightest, fast-growing demand expert out there. Obviously, you know what you're talking about. Now, can you paint for me who you are in personal life? Are you a family man? Because I didn't find a lot of information about your kind of, personal stuff that's happening behind the scene.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing all of those nice words and accolades. I'm Chris Walker. I'm an entrepreneur. I think one of the core things that has made me successful in my career and been able to do what I've done in the B2B marketing and go-to-market space overall is that I simply reject the premise. When people look and they look at things that they consider this is the way it is, I think about this is the way that it could be, which leads me to challenge a lot of existing best practices and ways of thinking and present alternative solutions that I think make a lot more sense in today's world right this second. So I think that is really what makes me special as an entrepreneur, whether I'm building our firm called Refine Labs, whether we're innovating on software or research or other types of products that can make a large impact and move this space forward. Those are places that I'm focused on. In my personal life, I'm 33 years old. I'm not married. I spend a lot of time traveling. I spend a lot of time in my business. And I intend to be married and be in a long-term partnership, but that hasn't happened for me yet. And I'm totally okay with that. I, again, reject the premise, right? The premise and social rules. Oh, you're supposed to be married by 27 and have kids by 30. And I just say, fuck that. I say, live the life that you want to live. And don't play by other people's rules, and everything works out exactly how it's supposed to for you.
How does this translate into your company, into culture, what you're building, into your team? Are you guys like data-driven, tech-savvy, or operational efficient, or creative? Like that sign of your personality that you just explained with being like kind of, rebelling in a way. How does that translate into the way you kind of look at your operation and the team?
That we attract smart people that are often underdogs, that see deeply inside of the work that they're doing right now, that what's they're doing right now isn't working, and the company that they work at isn't open to changing it. So they get stuck in their career and they just feel frustrated because there's clearly a better way to do it. And that attracts people to our company to actually start to look at paving forward. How is this supposed to work in the future, both working inside of our company, collaboratively with our customers, collaboratively with the community, to identify things that are working, to create data around those things so that there's data-backed insights that people can trust, built by experts that actually do it. I think another huge thing is most of the major sources of advice in B2B marketing, the biggest, most impactful sources that a lot of people, quote unquote, trust, come from firms that don't actually execute in real life. They make decks, they give advice, they haven't actually run a LinkedIn ad before in their career. They don't get into Salesforce, they don't look at the actual data, they just give advice. And so being people that are in the trenches with customers, working on planning and forecasting and solving big challenges and pushing the needle with new technology like account-based marketing platforms and intent data, those are things that people that come to our company want to do because they see clearly where the future's playing out. I mean, a lot of people are able to come to my company as a manager, work at my company for 2 years, exit as a VP or a CMO. We get a bunch of value because they're great contributors. They get a ton of value because they massively accelerate their career and their learning and growth by working with a ton of smart people. And it's amazing for everybody. And so those are the types of people based on sort of, if you rethink like sort of my mindset and how I communicate externally about our points of view, I think that's really the types of people that it attracts. It attracts people that see that this is still early, see that it's not accepted by the masses yet, and see that if they play the cards right, that they'll meet up into a major opportunity by learning these things, and then the market's going to catch up and need them all.
Right.
It's also interesting. We've been attached to demand gen. You even mentioned it as yourself in what we do, but I look at it as overall go to market. Like it's everything. It's what the SDRs are doing, what the actual motion is there, how we're going to measure it. Also events, paid media, sponsorships, actual sales resources. We're starting to get more into the analytics around partner channels. And so like companies, to no fault of their own, sort of view us as a quote unquote demand gen firm. We are significantly more sophisticated than that at this point.
You're one of the people in the space that I learned from who is actually data driven, and you back a lot of your strategies on data. I think this is something that you brought on from your engineering and product background. Is that so? This is
science 101. So whether you're a freshman in engineering school learning the principles of experimentation and statistics, or when I worked in medical device companies for 5 years, and in order to actually use a device in market on patients, you have to do large randomized clinical trials at multiple sites that account for confounding variables to know that it actually works. And using both of those things and marrying them together and thinking about go-to-market and demand as a science that we can study, that we can progress, that we can look at data, and we can use principles that other smart industries have used for the most important things like treating cancers, and now deploying that same type of thinking to our go-to-market strategies as a collective. We actually need a network of companies in order to bring this to life. It can't just be my company. There's got to be a lot of people that are pushing it forward, doing experiments, and we're going to build the place where everyone can come together to collectively do experiments, share anonymized data, and things like that actually create data-backed conclusions to push the industry forward.
One of my good friends actually invest into software development companies, and his approach is he investing into 10, 15 companies, and he work with all of them operationally, and he uses them as a laboratory to test different hypotheses that will then he starts implementing into other companies. So in this way, all the 15 companies in this space actually benefit from, having access to the same database with kind of knowledge and the results of the tests, right? And I do think that in the go-to-market space these days, we are very isolated in a way that every company has this much budget. I think what's happening right now is, it's not anymore about just implementing things. It's about knowing all of those minor details, right? Because like if we've been very big in the email marketing space. And I remember 7 years ago when I started, I could just take 100 leads and send them cold emails and I can get responses. Right now, when you want to send cold emails, you like have all of those things like, hey, do I set up my DNS? And then I have those BIMI records, or did I check my, like spam words, or did I warm up my reputation, or did I do that or that or that? And, obviously not many companies have access to that same level of knowledge, of experience of those things.
Yeah. I mean, what people do right now is they look at a sample size of one, where they say HubSpot did this and then it worked. It must have been because of this, without understanding correlation or causation or confounding variables that HubSpot was going to be successful regardless of whether they implemented that strategy. So they take that one, which is the same thing as giving a drug to one patient, that patient doesn't die, and then saying we can give this to everyone. That's not how it works. And so what the actual benefit is in the network that gets created, where a lot of companies operate on standardized data, are able to share that anonymously under SOC 2, be able to aggregate that, create standardized benchmarks, create standardized way of looking at go-to-market, and use that to fuel actual science. So the benefit becomes in the scale. That's where you actually get the difference between a doctor doing a little experiment in their lab and what's needed to actually move the profession forward are two very different things. I just think people are still stuck in their little lab and not looking at it at a broader scale yet. It's been proven out in other industries that this is exactly how to push science forward in a bunch of different areas: pharmaceutical, medical device, biotechnology. There's a bunch of other examples. Using those same principles in go-to-market make total sense, and I'm interested in continuing to push this forward as we move closer, instead of guessing about what's going to be working or what's not, or listening to what someone wrote in their LinkedIn post, to actually look at it in a data-backed scientific way, which informs better decision-making.
What's the vision for your organization in the next 5 to 10 years?
Vision for the organization is we do just that. We create something that's never been done before, that aggregates lots of companies together, operates inside of a standardized data system, just like you have your P&L, and every company in your PE portfolio, 50 companies, all look at the P&L the same way. Why don't we look at revenue data the same way? I was just analyzing a company. They take all their pipeline and they call stage 2 pipeline the same. But if you look at some of the pipeline, and they were like, oh, our win rates are bad. If you look at some of the pipeline from certain sources, their sales team wins those ops at 3%. And in other places, they win at 22%. But in their model, all that pipeline is considered the similar value because they don't have a standardization system to operate on. And so things like that are going to be able to push the profession forward. Then once we have that, we bring a ton of companies together that do all the things from running little experiments in their lab to participating in larger scale meta-analysis or controlled trials that help us reach decisions on what we should actually be doing, and having enough companies involved where there's actual statistical significance about whether or not you should do it. So you can say it with some level of confidence that if we do X, we will get X result, which has been hypothesized by Facebook ads people and Google ads people for performance marketing to get leads, but has never been used in a way to actually manufacture revenue.
How do you incentivize the curiosity and the science and sort of collaboration within the organization, especially when you're remote based first?
We incentivize people to publish what we call experiment reports or other types of best practices and studies, where they're able to make extra money by publishing those types of things, which allow us to push the science forward, share that with our entire customer base, be able to get feedback, inspire other companies to try a similar test, which gives us a larger data sample. So that's one of the main mechanisms that we use to drive this level of change. So people are hopefully always looking for, what is this a relevant insight? Should I surface this to the community? Will this be helpful? That's really the hope in this program.
That's a great approach. It's one of the most challenging things, especially when you have people, working with clients on a daily basis and, creating value for them, is to generate some additional learnings and insights and especially publish them and doing consistently, right? It's just very hard to incentivize people in that regard. In the service business. Interesting. What's your role within the organization right now? Obviously, you wore many hats over the course of the last 4 years building the business, but where are you at right now? You're Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Sales, Chief Growth, Chief Product Officer. What's your role?
When you're the CEO of the company, you are accountable to everything. So yes, I have focuses, but the focuses shift based on what the needs of the business are. I think the key thing that's really helping at this very moment is that we have moved to a flatter organizational structure, which allows me, my business partner, Megan, other key executives in our company actually be in the trenches working with customers. And that has allowed us to be able to innovate on what we're doing more frequently, to get out insights more quickly, to be more aligned with key executives inside of large organizations that have very expensive problems and need to change. Like a lot of companies with very expensive problems would feel very good if I'm in there, even if only involved at a certain level, to be able to help them. We're making some of those things happen again. It's beneficial to me. It helps my content immensely. It allows me to find new insights. It allows us to build a better service. It allows us to sell to more of the ideal customers that are going to get massive results with us. So that's been a key change over the past about 12 months, which I have found so far to be highly beneficial. We also push the executives at our company are also to be directly in contact with the people that are doing the work to be able to push growth, push innovation, drive urgency, and help those people grow and learn, which is one of the things that people love the most about working here, is that they're able to work with people like me and Megan that immediately help them grow at a rapid rate just by interacting in the way that we work. So that's another value prop to a potential person that might want to work at my company now or sometime in the future, is like the growth that people report in a short period of time is immense.
I talked with a few people who started their own companies, and there are two types of entrepreneurs: those that are pushing their brands with their name, like Neil Patel, for example, right? And his company, and there's a lot of customers that say, "Hey, I just want to work with Neil," right? And there's those that, are not connecting themselves directly to the value proposition to make sure that the team is servicing, the clients, and clients are not connected just working with Chris, and they want to have Chris in the office, right? Where you guys are at? Have you seen your customers, approaching and say, "Hey, I want to work with Chris. I need Chris in the meetings," or if you had that problem, what's your thoughts on sort of like the right approach, or changing it to the founder first, to a team first?
With companies expecting that they're going to work with me, we have 40 customers. It's not realistic, and a bunch of our people are better at specific things that more than me. So there's no need to put me on every project, and customers really understand that. When it comes to like the growth and personal brand side, I always sort of question, like, why isn't it both? And why maybe one or the other or both are more appropriate in a certain mix at different maturity levels in the company. Salesforce got pushed by Benioff at the beginning, but they're still fucking Salesforce. You know what I mean? And so like maybe at some level of maturity, because you have so many customers, you have great word of mouth, you have good developed really unique product, that the company starts to be able to live on its own brand. But while we're growing and I can supplement it clearly with content and channels, it just feels obvious to do that as an entrepreneur. So that's the approach that we're taking.
You spoke a few times on the other interviews about your moment in life, that when you started your company and you decided to make the jump, and how that was for you. But I was wondering, how did your life change after that April 2019 when you started Refined Labs?
say that for a majority of my early life, like I mentioned at the beginning, I played by society's rules. I did what you think you're supposed to do. Go to college, get a good degree so you can get a high paying job, get a job, work in the job for as long as you can until you get a promotion. And started to see how the world was changing, and did a lot of things to set myself up along that way, like starting a couple of companies while I still had a job in my early 20s, which helped me learn and play with entrepreneurship in a low risk way. And the number one thing that changed when I started my company, this isn't like a snap of the finger and it happens, but over the past 4 to 5 years of my life, it's the growth in my self-confidence. It's the expansion of the size and scale and magnitude of the way that I think. It's my own personal growth in terms of managing an executive team, being accountable to 50 to 100 people that are working here at any one time. To those types of things have been like serious growth. But when you think about like what changed in the first 90 days of me starting my company, is that I finally realized that I can make money on my own and I don't need a paycheck, and that I can make a lot more than if I did in a job, even though I know that I've done so much work. And there's just those 90 days, I basically posted on LinkedIn almost every day, and I quickly replaced my income. I also recognize that all the work that I did for the first 10 years of my career set me up for that moment, and that I worked very hard, and then I actually executed on the opportunity, which allowed me to capitalize, which I know a lot of people think that they might be a lot of people can't do it for whatever reason. And so I'm not telling everyone tomorrow, go and quit your job and start a thing. That's absolutely not what I'm telling you. And if you're not an entrepreneur or you're not ready, it might not work. I'll also say that when you are ready, you're not going to feel ready. And so I didn't feel ready when I went out to start my company, but I was. Clearly, I was able to build more than $1 million company in less than 9 months. I was ready, but I didn't feel ready. And I had to be pushed into it. And I'm very grateful for the people that pushed me into it because of how it turned out for my life and my career, dramatic change in trajectory of my life. Those are some of the ways that I reflect on that time when I started my company.
I've spoken with John Burroughs yesterday, and one of the things that kind of John, I wouldn't say regrets, something that he recommends to himself younger is to pay more attention. Have you been paying attention throughout those 10 years of working and developing projects, not your own ones, but with some other teams, like being employed? Have you always been kind of curious and paying attention to how things are and how they are run to learn?
That advice doesn't resonate with me personally. I feel like I'm consistently paying attention to consumer behavior and opportunities and timing, and have done that throughout my professional career. So that one doesn't particularly resonate with me. I feel like as you grow and become more successful, that you're able to put yourself in more opportunities for good things to happen. It could be perceived as paying attention, but you really have to have your mindset right. There's opportunities everywhere around you. It's just whether you have the awareness to those opportunities, and you need to do a lot of work in order to grow and start to see them, both at a mindset level and at a professional, whether it's personal brand or some other level of professional success. And then once you start to have an awareness to opportunities, you're much more likely to see it, to know what to do, and to actually capitalize. So that all that comes, it's just like Kobe Bryant hitting the, last second shot in the fourth quarter of Game 7. He had to spend 15 years practicing to be able to hit that shot. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into, there's a lot of effort just in parallels to athletics that come into professional success.
You just mentioned that you were pushed to start your own shop. Did you ever think that you should have made the jump sooner? That you were ready sooner?
hindsight's 2020, you can go back and say that things should have been different, but I sort of have taken the belief and the mindset that everything happens in the way that it's supposed to at the right time. And so, with that reflection, it happened at exactly the right time. If I tried to do that 3 years earlier, LinkedIn didn't even have a content platform then. The timing wasn't right. But when I started my thing, it was also like the crescendo moment for LinkedIn growth. And so and for my content to fill that platform, exactly what a lot of the people on the platform were looking for, I would say that the timing worked out exactly how it should have.
But at the same time in the world, there was COVID just hit, right? The time you started. And now we have another crisis at hand, right? That obviously slows everyone down. So the question for you, is it a good time for people to follow your lead and start their own companies or their own projects right now when we have kind of another crisis? And if you speak to what was going in your head when you kind of decided to make the jump and there is kind of COVID when, the first reaction I remember for the people was obviously you save on your hiring and you save on your R&D and some of your new marketing, right? So you just kind of hold on things.
If you had asked me that question 12 months ago, summer of 2022, is it a good time to start your own thing? I would have said definitely not. Tech is getting destroyed. There are layoffs everywhere. Valuations are getting cut. Companies are cutting budget. This is not the right time to go out and try and do your own thing. But if you ask me that at this very moment right now, I would say that it could be a good time for you, depending on if you're set up for it. But what's happening, Salesforce and other of the big tech stocks are having one of the best rebounds in 2023. Valuations are increasing and still have room to grow. It's giving confidence into the private markets. The private markets, like VCs and PEs, are then now telling their companies to spend more with more confidence, that new rounds are coming. Silicon Valley is back, quote unquote. That money then flows down to all the people involved in that industry. And so if you're ready, now could be a really good time. And when I say ready, I mean established success. You can't just go and work at a job for 6 months and make no impact and then go and tell a story about how much you did for that company. You actually need to drive organizational change and important business metrics over a sustained period of time. You need to have a personal brand. People need to know you and know that you know things that can help them. You need to do that. You need to have basic business financial acumen so that when you start, you don't burn through your savings and lose all your money and then end up going to get another shitty job. You need to have a network of people that trust you that could be your first 3 to 5 clients. And then immediately you're able to replace your income if you have that direct network effect for 3 to 5 people. So those are the things that I think that you need to have in place in order to do it with confidence. Did I have all those things when I started? No, but it was also a better time in the world. So I would say if you're not doing it already, it's probably for a reason. And because of that reason, I recommend that you get these other prerequisites in place in order to maximize the probability of your success.
I've spoke to a few people, and this is my personal opinion as well. If you were to ask me, would you start Belkins again in 2023 from scratch like you've done in 2016? I would say no. I wouldn't start, this company again from scratch. What I would do, I would join some other company that already are, working or already have some start into the client developer, etc., and I would come in, enhance the company, and and then either from start or eventually get a percentage from the company and then kind of grow the company, because the first 1 year and a half is one of the most kind of challenging times where you as the founder are not actually working as the founder but actually building the structure, which is a time-consuming things that if already done, then you can move faster, right? So I wanted to hear, I'm curious to know where you are in terms of, starting Refine Labs again in 2023 or joining the organization that's already afloat with the value prop and enhancing one.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to your own subjective perception of the situation. You say the first 2 years are really challenging. I say the first 2 years are the most rewarding 2 years of my life. And it's just different. It's about the perception. Like, yeah, was it hard? Yeah. But did I also grow into a person that I really wanted to become that I hadn't been before? Yes. And that's like one of the most meaningful things in my professional in my life. And would I start it again right now? Yes, I would. If you can believe it, if you think about this shift to like proper adoption from like an old lead generation model to an operationalized account-based model, we're at probably 2 to 3% of of the market moving, meaning 97% of the market still hasn't done this, made this transition successfully. And over the next decade, every company will make it. So there's still a massive market opportunity. And I believe that the best way to build a business, if you don't want to raise funding or you don't have money, is to build a niche service business that works with a broad set of companies inside of a set of activities, is able to collect those learnings into frameworks, intellectual property, things like that, convert that into a value-based offering for companies, and then layer software on it as the third leg of the stool. And you build a whole different company that way, because the features that you're building, you've already validated with hundreds of companies manually. You're not guessing whether or not it's valuable. And so, yeah, I would take the same path, and knowing what I know now, I think I would get there. I would get there quicker and more efficiently than I did before. But you could say that about anything in your life. Hindsight's 2020. You look back and you're like, yeah, I could have done a couple of things differently to get there, but you would have never known.
The approach you just explained, that's the same way I built one of my products, Folderly, the same exact way, working with customers on email deliverability as a niche service offering, testing the value proposition, creating the IP, and then productizing it, automating it, and then offering us as the product, as a software, servicing the customer, already having an idea without raising capital, and, be able to bootstrap that model, and, and then obviously showing, good, P&L with regards to your growth metrics and and burn, etc. And then you can have a much higher evaluation with regards to your software. And then instead of raising early seed or seed round, you can then raise Series A at a very nice evaluation, and keeping more of your company and actually ensuring the success of the product, right? So that's a great model. When I keynote, I always recommend this to other people that want to start the business. Don't go into raising and building R&D if this is your first business, because that's going to be tough. But actually testing something like you just explained with regards to that framework is actually a great idea. I think that my point, Chris, was more into, with the experience that I have right now, it doesn't make sense to kind of start off company from zero ground, but rather like joining someone and quickly enhancing them, because like even in your space, there are players in your space that are kind of good, right? So and the fact that they're where you guys are, or not there where you guys are, is having you and some other executives in the team. So I think that the point was, if you are thinking about having your own thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go ahead and start your own company and live off the savings, right? It just, you need to treat your another job or the company that you join as your own company, to be able to, as you said, create the organizational change, grow the business. And then if you are joining the company at a small, growth stage, you can actually get that project to, $1 billion valuation with actually, owning the company, right? Because, maybe you don't agree with me at this point, but I think that the difference between owning and not owning company is not about the shares that you own. It's about what eventually the success of the company going to look like. So if your company going to go down, next year because of whatever reason, and the fact that you own 100% of the shares or 70% of the share doesn't mean anything, right? So owning the shares is nothing.
Yeah, I would never do that. I would never like say, oh, I'm going to like stop my company and go and take 2.5 points and work at this other company in hopes that they become a unicorn. I would never do that. I'm an entrepreneur. I can't deal with having someone else call the shots because I see the world so differently that no one sees it the same as me until I create it. And I recognize that. And so having someone else that's not I have to pave the vision. So there's no way that I would go and be a C-level executive at a company ever again.
Maybe I think that we are in a bit different trajectory right now. So we already have 300 people on board, and I've done that a few more years than you did. And it's interesting how the change happened after 200 people and certain revenue stage where you have other people calling the shots, and you are not anymore sort of like you might be like a visionary in a way where you can get the direction and then the product, but there's so many other, people that are calling a lot of shots that you feel that, you are an executive in your organization if you want to have a healthy structure and healthy organization. Because one of the things that I've saw is when the founder, take credit, but rather like call all the shots, and then the company operates off the certain trajectory always and expects that. And in a crisis mode, one of the best things that's happening if the team and the executives make their own shots and they actually dictate what it's going to be about and they're self-sufficient, it actually helps with a lot of stress. Then you don't think that everyone relies on the decision that you make, in your kind of organization. This is just my 2 cents on the topic.
Yeah, having leaders that are senior level trusted people that can make day-to-day calls on operational things or even quarterly objectives is 100% necessary and encouraged with scale. What I will say though is without a visionary, you build a commodity business. And so that's in my experience, as you delegate down strategic decisions in the absence of a clear vision and strategy, you converge on building commodity shit that everyone else does, that doesn't have teeth, that doesn't cut through, that doesn't focus on a very ICP customer. And so removing that part from this company right now would be a death blow.
That's true.
We're on the path to build something incredibly new and different and that moves this industry totally forward. And without the vision, you build a commodity media agency that 100 of them exist. There's thousands probably.
That's true.
Successful businesses. There's some publicly traded. It's some knock on that business model. Yeah. But I'm here to do something different. And in order to do something different, you need the vision.
Yeah. That's so true. I agree. That's one thing that you cannot delegate and you cannot hire executives for. And executives would never understand that. They might share the vision, but they won't be able to set that vision up, right? And that's a bit different story. I agree with you. And kudos for you having that kind of clear vision and the teeth in the game to be able to execute that vision. Question: you have a lot of stress in your life?
I actually monitor my stress with this band called a Whoop, and I've been doing it they released this feature maybe 6 months ago, but I've used this band for 3 or 4 years now. And don't actually have that much stress in my life. I exercise frequently, which creates physiological stress, but invited stress that I want to have. But other than that, I don't have that stressful of a life.
Do you have kind of more stress or have more stress now when you started the company or when you work as an executive?
So I believe that stress gets created because of expectations or the mindset that something is going wrong or going to go wrong. And that creates stress. And if you are able to adjust your mindset where even if things are quote unquote bad, that you see them in a light of as if it's part of the game, then you get less stress. This is all it's all a mindset game as an executive. And I've done things really well and I've learned a lot and I've had places where I've missed. And it's part of the game of being a entrepreneur and an executive. Yeah, so that's kind of the way that I think about it. I think I had one more point, but it escaped me.
You've done a lot of personal growth, and you've mentioned this, that last 4 years were tremendous in terms of your personal growth and who you are now as the person. What's your long-term vision for yourself, or what's your kind of, I wouldn't call it as the exit strategy, but just what's your personal kind of game plan? What's your vision for yourself?
In terms of what I want to do in my professional career, it's fundamentally change how B2B companies think about going to market. That includes metrics and analytics. It includes tactical execution. It includes thinking about manufacturing revenue as a science. I also want to positively impact more than 5,000 future CMOs or revenue leaders, whether they work at my company or they buy our products and use them or other things like that. I want to be a vehicle for people that want to become a CMO and see the world in the future way and see where the puck is going and become a part of that. On a more personal level, I have financial goals. I have diversification goals in terms of having a portfolio of different businesses, where Refine Lab is probably the main one, at least for right now, but have a little bit more diversification. I'm an entrepreneur, so having my hands in other places is something I'm interested in long term. Potentially being either an accelerator or some other way for early or mid-stage companies to become successful using our methodologies and frameworks and experience. I envision having multiple places where I live. So it's sort of like, reject the premise again. I'll go back to the sort of teaching point. Every about 6 months, I start with a blank sheet of paper. I go up on my pool and I sit there for about somewhere between 4 and 8 hours. And I write out what my ideal life looks like at that time. And I can see it just like a visionary. I could see it. I could see how it hasn't happened yet, but I could see how it's happening. I can think about what are the most important actions that I need to change, what actions do I need to stop, start, or continue in order to keep getting there. And I'm just constantly iterating on what I want. I see as so much growth as a professional that the idea that what you see as the finish line never changes, I think is holds people back. What I want as an individual changes often based on the circumstances of my life. Maybe a couple times I tried things. I wrote down things in my notebook. I thought they were going to be so cool. I'll get to live in Austin and Boston at the same time. I'll be able to fly back and forth and live the 2-city life. It'll be so cool. Do it for 3 months and say, this absolutely sucks. I do not want to do this anymore. I'm living a half a life in 2 places. I'm going to just live in one place. What I thought I wanted, I tried and I didn't want. The key is that I tried. The key is that I actually decided that I thought I wanted it and I went for it and I did it. And then I learned that I didn't. A lot of people never try. And so I'm out there doing things. At one point I was really interested in running ultra marathons. I might actually still be interested in running ultra marathons, but when I was out there doing 20 miles on a Saturday and 20 miles again on a Sunday, and my knee was busted and I was getting skinny and I didn't like where I was from a health perspective, I was like, forget this. And I changed. And so I think being able to adapt to what you need continuously is a really strong framework, because acknowledging that things change and what you want is going to change too.
What else do you do to kind of fuel your success, current or future, besides the planning on your notebook and then the taking care of your health and exercising?
I have a couple of non-negotiables. I work out every morning. First thing I do when I wake up, 7 days a week. Some people are like, oh, you got to rest one day. I'm like, I'm different than you. So I work out 7 days a week in the morning. I am heavily dedicated to my sleep, which has not been true for my whole career. In 2020 and 2021, I was getting 5 hours of sleep every night and it was unhealthy. And I spent a lot of time figuring it out. Now I get minimum 7.5 hours of sleep, oftentimes 9, which allows me is the number one indicator in human performance is sleep. So I take sleep a lot seriously than I used to. And find that it really helps me. I think if you take care of your body and you take care of your mind,
Yeah.
you're able to be a strong executive and entrepreneur, and not allowing compromises there. I know a lot of executives that are like, oh, I wanted to work out at 6 a.m., but I had this call and it was in Europe and I had to be on the phone at 6 a.m. I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm committed to my routine. I know that I need it to perform, and I don't make compromises against it. So those are a couple of things. And then surrounding myself as frequently as possible with successful, smart people that have large ambitions, that are doing important things, that think in a really growth-oriented way. They teach you so many things. They open up opportunities. Being able to be surrounded by the people that you surround yourself with have a massive impact on your day-to-day mindset, therefore your day-to-day life. Your mindset dictates how you reflect on your life. And having people that have bad mindsets or fixed mindsets that are around you then subconsciously get you into a fixed mindset and prevent you from doing things. So it really is true. Who you surround yourself with is who you become. So that's another thing that I do.
What do you do you mentioned taking care of your mind. What do you do in that regard?
Mostly writing. I've tried meditation on and off with like varying results. I just haven't figured it out for myself yet. Maybe I'm sure I will at some point in my life, but I haven't figured it out yet. But writing really does become the main thing. I spend a lot of time in my notebook reflecting, trying to understand, plan things out, pull things out of my head that are subconscious, not like a great business idea, like a limiting belief or something that I have that's preventing me from doing something really important, or why I'm procrastinating on this task and trying to get to the root of it. And so that's really the thing I've found most effective in terms of mind work. I know that there's a amazing amount of other things that you could do. And I acknowledge that I'm potentially a little bit earlier in my journey than some.
Last question on this topic. Where do you get your information from? I know a lot of people, they have this informational hygiene. Some people have the, I've talked with Anthony Yanaris, and he mentioned that he is doing the negativity fasting for 30 days to help out with cleaning the mind, etc. So, what do you do in that regard in terms of getting the information, where you get it from?
Yeah, totally. I stopped watching like television in 2013 or 2014, mainly the news. So I'm not exposed to anything. Current events, I have no fucking clue unless someone tells me, because I just don't care for all the garbage that comes along with it. And all the subliminal messaging and manufacturing of points of view that those types of channels push. I'm just not interested in being a part of it or having my mind brainwashed by them. So I just don't participate. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter for that reason either. I am very careful in the information that I consume, especially digitally through like screens. Now, where I get a lot of my information is in two places. One, actually doing it. So actually taking action. And then the other one is through a network of smart people that I built over my career and continue to build today, that I trust, that are smart, that I'm able to call when I need to talk through something and understand from their experience. And that's where you get the information. And everyone should be, you should be very, very careful about where you get your advice. You should have limited sources of high quality information, and that's where you should get it. And so those are the principles that I live by. Do I read books? Sure, I do read some books, and there's some great conceptual things that I've been able to glean from books that are really helpful as well. But am I like one of the people that are like, every CEO's got to read 104 books a year? No, I'm definitely not like that. And the key here is that you at some point in your life, you learn the most by actually doing it, not reading about it or listening about it. And a lot of people get stuck in the perceived consumption phase. I just want to keep consuming and never actually doing. Part of that's a mindset thing. Part of that could be procrastination and other stuff. But as you start to move forward, you see all the benefits in actually doing. So you spend less time trying to learn and more time trying to do.
Plus, the different people have different speed of digesting a book or an idea, right? Very often you don't necessarily need to have 10 books. You just need one book that kind of gets you thinking about something that you are digesting, trying, living through it, right? And then only then you're reading to, ready for another book. I've seen so many people that are reading a lot and they read, but they don't get the context of it or the ideas that comes from it. And it doesn't bring them into, the better version of themselves. It's just kind of purely reading for the sake of like a hobby, like playing a video game, right? Or watching a movie. Yeah. That's kind of same. But that's totally kind of different thing.
It's because of fear of failure. You don't need 10 books. One book was enough. You're reading the other 9 because you're scared to fail and you think that you need to have a perfect plan, when in reality, there's no such thing as failure. You're going to learn a bunch of stuff. And so a lot of people get stuck saying, I don't have enough information. If I try this, I might fail. Instead of saying, I have enough information, I'm going to try these things and I'm going to learn and figure it out. You're never going to be perfect doing anything for the first time. But a lot of people try to be perfect on the first time and therefore they never actually do it.
What do you appreciate yourself for? Or what do you appreciate the most in yourself?
I think that I appreciate that I have figured out a way for myself to drive rapid growth personally and professionally, and have now figured out ways through my podcast, events, my products and services, the company and all the team that work here, to transfer that really valuable mindset and skill that I've learned to a lot of people at scale, which then makes them more successful. Could be 5-6 figures, amounts of people that have been impacted by that type of work for me. And that's, I think, the thing that I'm most proud of for me, for being able to be in a position to figure out how to achieve that for myself. And I'm proud of myself for putting the pieces in place to be able to distribute those learnings, whether it's tactical, how to run a Facebook ad, or be in the CRM, or some of the things that we've talked about today about how to think in your mindset and how you could reflect on the exact same situation as challenging or rewarding. It's your call. Mm-hmm. Those are things that I'm happy to share with other people in hopes that it helps them be more successful.
All right, I'm moving on to my last block of questions. And this is something that I want to do just because obviously, we are talking and it's third quarter 2020 through, we're already past the first part of the year. And this year is totally different for all the different executives that I'm talking to. So can you define what is 2023 for you personally and for your organization?
2023 is the time where we properly set up to pursue this grand vision that we have to change the face of B2B marketing. And we made a lot of strategic choices over the past 18 months, which have been really hard time to be a CEO and an entrepreneur. And we made a lot of important choices, some of them unpopular, that set us up for this very moment where the faucet comes back on from VC and PE, where the things that happened in the past were a lot market driven and the faucet being closed, not strategic choices that we made one way or the other. Now the faucet's back on, the tailwind at our back is now set up. Companies need efficiency. I've been talking about efficiency for 5 years. Companies need to focus on CAC. They need to look at things holistically across sales, marketing, and SDRs, not departmentally. They need to transition from a lead-based to account-based model. They need to figure out how to operationalize that in a go-to-market system. Gartner's not giving that shit to them. And so there's this massive opportunity. The tailwinds are at our back in terms of both funding and what the market needs right now. And we are properly set up over the next it's probably 24 months to really capitalize on this time. If you listen to the smartest people in Silicon Valley that are responsible for deploying billions of dollars in capital, they said starting last week, we're on the clock. It's the best 2 years to be an entrepreneur in history.
Oh, really?
And that's what some people in tech. So
why is that? What they say? Why is that? Why we are in the best time?
because of where the bar of the funding environment was so low to close 2023. Companies got really devalued way lower than their actual market value because of projections. Because AI is becoming real in how you can integrate those things into products and be way more efficient and build a unicorn with 100 people instead of 2,000. There are some serious opportunities going on. And then just the moment in the market where we're at, where there is so much difference between what B2B companies do to sell stuff versus what their customers want from them. And companies really need to come to grips and figure out how to properly serve what their customer needs today inside of their own sales, marketing, and SDR resources. And so I think it's a really powerful time. And what did 2023 do? It allowed us to set ourselves up to be properly positioned to take advantage of the current opportunity in front of us.
So do you think that we were in a kind of a recession, or that was a kind of a slowdown and we're all back? And I know that marketing is one of the first industries that feels the heat, but then that's the first industry that recovers, right? And people start kind of going back and investing. So what was that?
Yeah,
that kind of
it's undeniable that over the past 12 to 18 months that the economy has not been good. But the thing is that it's very verticalized in its impact. It really impacted tech first because tech was way overvalued because of low interest rates. So it wasn't like everything in the market was going down. Tech got crushed. And that all of the money that comes from tech, software vendor buying software from another company, software vendor buying a consultant or a freelancer or hiring more people, the money that went into that ecosystem declined. So it got much harder for tech companies and the ecosystem that serves tech companies, which includes my company. So yes, it's been a very challenging time to be an entrepreneur in this market overall. It's also hit banking, and there could be more looming issues in banking. I'm not going to pretend to be an economist, but what's happening right now in tech specifically is that the smartest people that said sell all your tech stock in November of 2021 and were right are the same people that last week were saying that tech is back. We should expect a lot. We should expect a bull run through the end of the year. We're going to see more funding deployed. We're seeing companies invest more aggressively like they used to, not irresponsibly like in some times, but invest more aggressively, which a lot of spending has been paused, especially at companies that raised a big C or D and really needed runway extension. But a lot of those companies are now making investments again. So because of the confidence in the market that the private market will trail the public market, and there's confidence in the public market, specifically around like the big 5 tech stocks, Google, Salesforce, et cetera. So yeah, it's like, I wouldn't say that the economy is the best it's ever been, but if you're really centered on tech, it's the best it's ever been in 18 months for sure.
You mentioned that it's been tough 15 months for your organization, and you had to make some changes that some of them were unpopular. And obviously we as an executives do that to adapt to the changes and to, get through them stronger and ready for scale, ready for to better service the customer with et cetera, et cetera. What did you guys do to adapt? What were the changes?
Throughout 2022 and 2023, we made significant investments in the products that we're building. Mm-hmm. So the Vault, which has I think close to 5,000 overall users and maybe 500 paying members, does close to $1 million ARR, has been a bet that was unpopular during 2022 because product development, you burn before you make money when you're building real products.
Right.
But have been able to get to where we are in product development and see how the product now marries up to our overall strategy becomes really important. We made investments in building a Salesforce native application that uses a custom object to do operationalization of companies that want to move to an account-based model. We built that custom. We've baited it with companies. that product is almost ready for us to then go out and deploy in the market and help a lot of companies. It took investment to get there that didn't provide an immediate return, and it required long-term thinking in a very difficult short-term time. Lastly, we've flattened the organization, which, as I reflect, is critical for us to actually accomplish the mission that we have as an organization. We need our best executives working with our customers and the people in the team, because it's going to drive growth of those people, long-term retention, innovation, things like that. In order to do what we wanted to do, we can't have huge hierarchy. We can't have like big process. We need to be fast. We need to be agile. We need to be innovative. Flattening the organization to where we are today is going to be meaningfully impactful in how we approach the next stage, which is sad, which is tough. Like over the past period of time, our revenue has declined. So has everybody's. And so things have happened in a short-term period of time where if you judge the short term, you're like, oh, that was bad. I think that when you look at it in a long-term window and you see what happens over the next 2 or 3 years, it becomes a much more clear story as to how and why we got here. But we got to go out and prove ourselves. We have to do that work. We have to make the impact. We have to deliver the products. So there's still a ton more work for us to do in order to achieve it. But I believe that we're in the best position that we've been in as a company today that as we have in the past 18 months.
I wanted to us close up on this note just because there was a strong, powerful message. Thank you so much, Chris, all right?